G'day Aussie Gridiron fans, welcome to the G'day Gridiron podcast, brought to you by the Aussie Gridiron Network. It is the AFC West breakdown. That's what we're going through right now. We've done two divisions already. We're going to hit the AFC West and talk about the makeup and the breakups in four teams. I can't remember the terms Brad coined originally. And I'm sure they'll come to us. How you going, Brad?
Doing well. I'm old enough to where I remember when the Seahawks played in the AFC West, believe it or not. So that's when I grew up. They played there. So it's kind of going back to my roots. Not that I'm a Seahawks fan, but I'm
No, but you definitely just brought up the Seahawks within the first minute of the podcast, Brad.
And your roots.
But I'm not a fan.
Again, confusing the conferences.
Oh, I was just about to say
It's like the North again.
I was just about to say, this is the one with the 49ers, the Rams, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks, right?
Yeah.
No, we're definitely leaving that one to last. Brad's sitting there in his Tony Romo jersey.
Hey. Easy. Don't knock. What's his new saying? Tony, I've had one too many, Romo.
That's a better one. Tony, 3 sheets to the win, Romo.
Yeah, right.
That's the boy.
I love
sheets
my
to the
Tony.
win.
Nicky, you ready to talk the number one overall pick?
Yes, and obviously with Fernando Mendoza looking at number one, the question of should the Raiders still be picking at number one? That's one I'll be having later.
Oh, that'll be
Ooh.
interesting. All right.
Juicy.
Four teams to get through as quick as we can. No time limits, which is dangerous for us. Danger, Will Robinson.
Danger Russ.
Danger Russ.
No.
I can't get there quick enough with that media.
Jeez.
Play the drop, man. Play the
When I
drop.
woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Yeah, wow. No, that's pretty quick. That's pretty
Oh, that's
quick.
what she said, Brad.
Oh, you got it. I thought
Unlimited.
All right. 4 teams to pick from: Denver Broncos, Los Angeles Chargers, Kansas City Chiefs, Las Vegas Raiders. Who wants to start with who? Where do we start, boys?
Start at the bottom.
Start at the bottom. Okay.
Yeah.
Start at the bottom. Start at the
Let's
bottom
go
and
with
go
it.
straight to the top. Las Vegas Raiders. All right, we'll kick us off then. Isaac.
Well, what do you do with the first pick, as Nick brought up just a minute ago? Do you try and get something else for that first overall pick? Do you believe in Fernando Mendoza as your franchise quarterback? That is because they have the pieces on offense and the pieces on defense. If he's still there by the start of the season, you've got your running back. You just needed to know how to use him. You've got your tight end. Maybe they go into the market for a free agent wide receiver to really get things going. But if you believe in Fernando Mendoza, take him and run with it. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Clint Kubiak goes in a head coaching role as opposed to just being an OC in Seattle there. So for me, they need to fix some of the defense. And luckily that this draft is a deep defensive draft, so they can pick up a few pieces in the later rounds, and that's my thing. They've got some pieces to be encouraging, but it's going to take a lot.
It's I think you hit the nail on the head. It's going to take a lot, and they've got so many holes. They were last in points. They were last in total yards. They were last in rushing. They were last in red zone efficiency. So you have unlimited amount of need here for the things that they have to improve. And they've got the number one pick, and then in the second round they got 33, and then third round they got 65. So you've got some draft picks. You've got a lot of flexibility when it comes to the cap. You've got a brand new coach, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about this later. But I think you got to look at is Mendoza really, should he be the number one pick? You know, because Kubiak, historically, he runs an under center outside zone scheme. Mendoza played in a shotgun RPO in college. Those two systems don't work. It's not to say that he couldn't learn it or that type of thing, but it's not going to be just a smooth transition. And in my opinion, and I don't want to get bogged down on Mendoza right now because we're talking about the Raiders as a whole, but you've got so many holes in there. I personally think they should trade. I think trade that number one, and I think trade Crosby, because you have to shore up that O line. You've already invested a ton in a running back who couldn't go anywhere because how bad that line is. And then now what, you're going to put a quarterback there with that line? So to me, they've just got so many things. They got to fix that line. They got to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, because Geno Smith, Max Crosby, what are they going to do there? So they have nobody on the perimeter, wide receivers. So anyway, they got so many holes. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, people talk about how bad Ashton Genty's rookie season was, but they seem to forget about the fact that he was drafted into a team and a franchise that just wasn't ready for him and didn't let him produce. So there's so much going on there, and I totally agree with you, Brad. Is that the place that you throw a rookie quarterback? We've said it quite often, Brad. That's not how you build a team. That's not how the big team builders have always said that you build a team. You need to build from the inside out, and the quarterback has to be one of the last pieces that goes into that team, and the way you build it. And this may not be the year. It may be the year to just trade that number one overall pick away for as much as you can possibly get.
Yeah.
And not only that, they fired their OC halfway through the season. Mind you, the highest paid OC in the league.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't get Genty going. They needed something else.
I think you could have had Shanahan, to be honest with you, in that offense, and I don't think he could have got anything going.
No, you're right. And I just don't understand why you just go for that rookie QB. To be honest, you've got Geno Smith still on the hook for another 2 years if you want to. So build your team behind him. He's not a bad quarterback. He's mid-level quarterback, but he's a great guy to build around right now, to build that team around, and then to try and throw a QB in there. Or, as we said earlier in the week, you get guys like Taylor Green who are going to be late-round quarterbacks that have some potential, but probably need a bit of ironing out and a bit of straightening out behind someone like Geno Smith. So maybe go one of them way back in the draft rather than just going for Mendoza at the top end. Like, let him go to somewhere else. And if you're the Raiders, you've got to stop. Identity. We keep talking about this. What is your identity? Where is your identity gone? And you need to find what that identity is before you can build that team. You played a toilet bowl, for God's sakes.
That's exactly why I sort of floated the question earlier about should they be trading, and I think they absolutely should. From their perspective as well, if you float this idea to, Clint Kubiak as well, and obviously to the GM, if Max Crosby is wanting to leave, and if he wants to leave, you trade him, but you go from picking Mendoza, you've got very limited sort of O-line. They had horrible O-line play last year, which obviously doesn't help Ashton Genty, which obviously doesn't help Mendoza because he doesn't have a great run game. So if you go from that and you go, well, okay, we're going to lose our best player. We're not going to take a quarterback this year. You'll be with Geno Smith. But in the next 2 drafts, we'll have 7 picks probably inside the top 2 rounds over the next 2 drafts. Would you take that? That's a good way to rebuild, because then this year you can go through, you can build in the trenches both sides. Obviously you've got to replace Crosby. And then next year you can continue to build that. You can maybe grab, every draft there's always receivers. You can find them in any round. You can grab your receivers, try and add to that. And then next year again, so you commit to obviously Geno Smith next year. So what? You have probably a top 3 or 4 pick again, where there's more quarterbacks to take and probably better quarterbacks you can choose from as well. So I'm a fan of, if they win 5 games next year with Geno Smith, who cares? And then that's a year they punt on, and at least then they've at least sort of tried to set up, both sides of the trenches and actually give the quarterback a better chance being behind a better O-line, and then obviously Kubiak another year in the system with Bowers, and then Genty as well.
Yeah.
This is the year to build. This is the year to build that team around cap space too.
Yes,
you've got $85 million in cap space this season, and that exactly what Nick said is the perfect way to do it. Look for QB next year. You got $85 million currently in cap space right now, because of the way everybody's contracts are on the Raiders. Their 2027 projection right now is $256 million in cap space. So you've got so much room to be able to up the right guys and build around that team, and then just plop a quarterback in there next year.
So
sorry,
guys,
wants to go?
What teams are going to want to trade up for? Because Mendoza's going 1, right?
Yeah, right.
What teams are going to go?
I think any team's going to want to trade to 1. Are they going to want to trade to 1 to take Mendoza? Like, they're two separate questions, I think.
Yeah. So if you're the Jets, they probably trade up for Mendoza, right? So say you trade with the Jets, you go back kind of like what Carolina and the Bears did last year. You get the Jets first round pick next year, unprotected, and then you could go get Ty Simpson in the second round. And he was one of the better quarterbacks in the college game last year, if not better than Mendoza. So plus you get a haul of draft picks for next year as well. So I don't know if the Jets come ringing, I'm seriously listening.
100%, and because they're very needy too. I mean, sorry, the Jets have got a lot of picks as well. So it's
and you get the number 2 pick obviously with the Jets.
Yeah,
you pick swap and you get their swap their pick next year.
Yep.
I mean, the way that Miami operate, like if Miami are going after Malik Willis, they were a 7-win team last year. If they're going after Malik Willis, they clearly think that they're not trying to bottom out, which is weird, even though they got rid of Tyreek Hill and then obviously Bradley Chubb. If that's the case, they could be selling. They're at 11. They might want to move up. They might think, quarterback away. And then that's their excuse to get rid of Tua. Because they're in that weird sort of spot. They won 7 games last year, and they think that Jeff Havlic's probably sitting there going, well, maybe we can make a run. I don't know.
So the last time, just historical for context, when the Panthers traded up to get the number 1 spot when they took Bryce Young, they gave up 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and DJ Moore. So that was a haul. I don't think you can expect to get that from this, because no matter what people think of Mendoza, I don't think they think he doesn't have that kind of hype. Now Bryce hasn't lived up to that hype, but even if they frankly all they got was another 2 first rounds and a second, I'd do it because they're so needy. I don't think you can be greedy, because again, best case scenario, what are they going to finish? They draft Mendoza, sit him for half a season. He comes in, they're decent. There's noise that they want to sign Tyler Linderbaum, center out of the Ravens. So they get him, shores up a little bit offensive line. Kubiak comes in, changes the system. All that stuff. Best case scenario. They still only win 7-8 games. They're not making the playoffs. So, and worst case scenario is, Mendoza, they start him week 1, he just becomes a punching bag for the rest of the NFL. So, and you're back to winning 3 games, and now you've got a running back and a quarterback whose best years are being wasted.
Right, I disagree with your point about the trade, though, because if you think back to that year, the number 1 pick was sort of a coin flip between CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. There wasn't a clear number 1.
That's true.
And it also wasn't either of those guys weren't sort of that, overwhelmingly great prospect that you had to have. And neither is Mendoza, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing that adds to it is that it's a lot more scarce in terms of the quarterbacks this year. So if a team's really desperate, they'll go over for it, because the next guy after Mendoza is Isaac says, probably going to be Ty Simpson. And you could probably get him, maybe the Steelers take a chance on him at pick 21. Otherwise, he goes probably maybe second round is probably a decent pick for him. But because of that scarcity as well, as opposed to that year, it was like 1 or 2. And like the Panthers moved up. And, obviously we remember that Houston moved up as well. And they took Stroud and Will Anderson, pick 2 and 3. They traded with Arizona. So I don't know. Like they might be able to get it because unless the Jets or the Cardinals trade up from pick 2 or 3, obviously don't get as much because you're only moving down 1 or 2 spots.
Yeah.
But you'd still get a haul even if you're still drafting, second or third, and you take you either take a lineman or you probably take a pass rusher.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if you're picking top 5, I don't have the draft order right in front of me, but if you're picking top 5, you're gonna at least have to give up next year's number 1 and probably a second, and that's to move back 2 or 3 spots. So I again, if I'm the Raiders, man, I listen to everything.
Yeah.
And I'd get rid of Crosby. If they could get 2 1s for Crosby, imagine they come out of this with 4 number one draft picks. I mean,
that's what I mean.
Yeah. But there ain't no guarantee. Jets had 3 number 1 draft picks, and they did.
Yeah, you got to hit on them,
do
of
anything
course.
with it. So yeah.
You got to hit on them, of course. But if they trade, like let's say they flip with the Jets, and they have next year's first round pick as well, like that very much both their pick and the Jets pick next year could still be 2 top 5 picks next year.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happened with the Bears one. That's why we compare it to the Bears pick. Like they traded with the Bears and they got the first overall pick the following year. Okay.
So something else to quickly consider is early strength of schedule rankings. The Raiders are within the top 10 hardest in this for 2026 in terms of strength of schedule.
Of the
just tank it, man. Honestly, tank it.
Yeah.
So everything you guys are saying, exactly that. Like, why would you then put a rookie QB into that situation? We've seen it before. It does not end well.
Yeah,
it doesn't end well for the team, the player, the players around them, anywhere. So, best case,
I
worst
just gotta
case.
say this. Sorry, Ian. Well, no, go for it. You do best case, worst case.
Will you start us off, Brad? Best case, worst case for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Just like what I said earlier, you hit on all those things. And let's say they go with Mendoza, he shows a spark, all that kind of stuff. You're still only winning 7 games, like I said. So, and I think worst case is they win 3 games again. They keep Crosby. Crosby gets hurt. His trade value becomes nil, and you're back in this cycle year after year after year.
Isaac, best case, worst case for the Raiders?
Best case scenario is they take that generational talent at number 1 in Mendoza, and he works out, and Clint Kubiak is touted as the brains behind the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl win. Worst case scenario is you take Mendoza and he gets pummeled, and like Brad say, you win 3 games, and all of a sudden Clint Kubiak isn't the red hot name in everyone's mouths at the moment.
Nick, any change to that? I'm pretty much the same. So I can't.
Best case for me, I still think best case is that they move off that number 1 pick. If they've got to sit down and figure out with Max Crosby if he wants to go. If he does, get a haul for both of those. You trade back. This year you can get one of those Miami guys on either side of the ball. In the first rounds, and then you build up for the next couple of years. Worst case scenario, if Mendoza is just that limited quarterback, like I know we've seen he can make a lot of the throws. He was a Heisman Trophy winner this year, but there are some limitations to his game as well. And if you put him behind a subpar line and Genti can't really get going, and the defense is still not as good, then you could be looking at a 5-win team maybe.
I think the one thing that we need to put out there is Mark Davis is we would be willing to split the GM's salary between the four of us, and we could probably run the Raiders. So if Tom Telesco's not doing it for you, the syndicate
Yep.
here from us, and I don't even need a green card, so I can just come straight over. Okay.
Yeah. Brad could be the man.
Yeah.
We'll just help from afar.
You guys stay here. We'll consult daily. Zoom is a real thing, and
Yeah.
you know
We've seen what he's like with spreadsheets.
Yep. Loves a good spreadsheet. Can compile data. Fit right in with Mark Davis and his backpack and his weird haircut.
I guarantee we'd be drafting that Iowa offensive lineman with the hair.
100%. At pick 1 as well.
Yeah. We'll take 101.
That's a real statement.
It is a statement, and I will be telling you every day that we have a meeting what is our identity.
It would
Where are we?
I would only draft him on the condition that he has to pose for selfies for 3 hours before the game, just with people.
All right, let's move on. Kansas City Chiefs. For the first time since Patrick Mahomes was drafted, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to pick within the top 10 of a draft. It definitely wasn't the Chiefs' year. A lot of things did not go their way. A lot of very close games went the opposite way. And then we ended with Mahomes getting injured at the end of the season, and the Chiefs in this weird kind of limbo now where Mahomes will not be ready for week 1 of the season. So they need to make sure that they have the right QB2 in position to be able to lead the team and rebuild. But the Chiefs picking inside the top 10 gives them kind of like this weird mini rebuild where they can pick up a few players both in the first and second rounds with their advantageous positions that they can sort of, I guess, fill out gaps within their team structure. Maybe even go a slightly different direction where everything isn't reliant on Patrick Mahomes being the one and only savior on that team, and we go into seasons where it's all Patrick Mahomes. Nick, what's your thoughts on the Chiefs and this season that we're coming into? Where should they? What should they be? Where should they go?
Good that you started talking about Mahomes, because that's probably the thing that they've got to figure out early. They've got to figure out, is he on track to be playing, I would say, at least 80% of the year. If he's not on track to play 80% of the year, it's pretty much an uphill battle because they'd have to be near perfect towards the back end with him playing. They've got a bit of sort of cap trouble. I wouldn't be surprised if they look at some of their more senior guys. Obviously, we know about, Travis Kelce, how much is he going to sign for if he does. Some other guys we heard about earlier sort of in the week about Juwan Taylor, who will help obviously sum up some sort of cap room for them, whether someone wants to trade for him, probably not, or they'll probably end up cutting him. They look at sort of Trent McDuffie as well. Will they keep him? How much is he going to cost to be able to extend? This is the sort of conversation that they'll have to have. I think if Mahomes, if he doesn't play next season, I don't see it as such a bad thing if I was a Chiefs fan. Yes, you're punting on the season. I know we're just talking about the Raiders sort of punting in now, and potentially the Chiefs. But again, we look at sort of going into this season. Now they could sort of build out, having that help for Mahomes. They can build out, second, third round and everything, taking those defensive guys that, they need some guys off the edge. They need pass rushing help. They were very much lacked in it compared to the last few years up front on the defensive side. They'll probably need someone on the back end as well. But again, like if they punt on this year, now I know it's sort of projecting it. So obviously you have a lot of teams that are tanking that will be going after quarterbacks. So the teams will be bad this year going after quarterbacks. So let's say the Chiefs, Mahomes isn't ready, he's behind on his, rehab and everything like that. They bring back, Minshew, or they bring back whoever, they just don't look that good. They win 6 games again, 5 games or whatever. all these top teams will be overdrafting the quarterbacks. Some of them probably not because they'll be correctly rated depending on who they pick as quarterback. But, you know, at pick 9 this year, they could take Jeremiah Love, who's an incredible prospect. Like the guy has, and they've said it multiple times about Jahmyr Gibbs comparisons. It's pretty much that. Like it's that combined with like an Isaiah Pacheco. Like the guy runs very hard. It's a great thing to watch. The year after, if they've got a top pick, two of the best receivers coming out of the draft for a very long time. I don't know how much you guys watch the sort of college game. Jeremiah Smith, and the other guy is Ryan Williams out of Alabama. If they are one of the teams that don't need a quarterback in that sort of top 10, 7 sort of range, they are in a big spot to be able to get an incredible running back and pretty much like those two guys are pretty much pros playing in college football right now, have been the last 2 years, even as freshmen. So it's a bit of a weird spot. Andy Reid, apart from this year, hasn't, not made the playoffs with the Chiefs for a while, so it's a bit of unfamiliar territory. But it's a good year to sort of retool. They could lean into Brett Veach, being as good of a GM as he is. Obviously, save a bit of cap room because Mahomes' deal is so big. And then just be able to find some guys this year on both sides of the line, fix up that defense a little bit, and then if you have to punt on next year, and then you can take more sort of offensive talent and go from there.
Isaac, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking Nick has just covered that magnificently. I love his insight into that. This is probably one of the ones where the best case scenario and worst case scenario, like Nick was saying, are exactly the same thing. Mahomes doesn't come back. So worst case scenario, Mahomes doesn't come back. You're 5 or 6 wins with Minshew. You get a high draft pick the following year, and you get a good decent pick this year. And that's the same as the best case scenario. You win all ends up like some of the mock drafts, like Nick was saying. Jeremiah Love goes there. Okay, maybe they even redshirt him for the first and just try and keep him on ice for that run in a couple of years when they retool their offense. That they just go for it in say 27 or 28. So yeah, I can't really add too much to what Nick's just said then.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about the Love situation, drafting Love at running back, and there's no doubt that they need to do something there. They have one 20-plus yard carry last season. That is atrocious. So they have to do something. I get that. But when you have so many glaring needs, is running back gonna do it for you? Is that gonna push, or would you be better off going the free agency route and trying to get a running back from there? Because I know it'd be expensive, but Kenneth Walker, is he going to be available? Travis Etienne, I'm assuming Breece Hall, has he been tagged, or is he going to be tagged?
Yeah, he's been tagged.
Well, he hasn't yet, but I would assume so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I just think when you've got so many other needs, because that defensive line needs some help. They're getting pressure, but they're not getting sacks. And you saw when they won the Super Bowl, it was when Chris Jones was at his best. And he's going to be entering into his age 32 season. So they need some juice in that line, just like they need running back. And I think it's easier to fix the running back situation in free agency than it is the line. I think if there's a stud out there at all, I'm taking a lineman, even though it's not sexy, because they also got to do something at wide receiver as well. Hollywood Brown, inconsistent. What's the other guy? Thornton? No. Juju Smith-Schuster, he's getting old. And we still don't know what Kelsey's going to do. If Kelsey retires, then they've screwed the pooch. So they really got to do something. And Nick, you brought up about the McDuffie thing. He's coming in on his 5th year. So do you let him play out the 5th year, which is going to cost him about $13-14 million, or do you offer him an extension, or do you trade him? Because if you offer him an extension, you're looking at paying $30 million for a cornerback, and they historically don't pay that much for cornerbacks. So they've got some decisions to make. Personally, again, I'd trade him. So I'd get a 1st-round draft pick for the dude, because either that, unless you think you can win it again. If you run it back and think you can win it again, and Bieniemy's going to be the answer, then keep him, let him play in the 5th year. But if you're, like what Nick said, if you're not getting Mahomes back until week 6, week 7, then no, go for next year.
They reckon he's trending to come back week 1, which is wild. I'm just looking at the injury stuff now. It's usually a fairly lengthy recovery from ACLs.
Yeah, I bet you that's just because he's sick of living with his brother all the time at home.
Quite possibly. Yeah. Look, Brad, I hear what you're saying as well too, though. But you get to 9, and I think Jeremiah Love is being touted as a genuine 3-down prodigy, like the kind of guy that can do it all. And it is not something that they've had. They haven't had a proper rushing presence the entire time that they've had Mahomes and Big Red there either. So you're talking about maybe a whole different scheme, a whole different way to play their offense.
It would be, yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you get to 9, if he falls there to 9, you just take him in a heartbeat because they're picking inside the top 10 picks in every one of the first 5 rounds. So there's O-line depth, there's wide receiver depth, there's I think you can get other guys down there. The only 2 big wide receivers actually on their roster right now going down at Brad is actually Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. Now, both guys have had their problems, but I think if you help out the rest of the offense, then that comes along as well. I don't know. There's a lot of depth there, plus free agency, which they can't do a ton of.
I would love to hear or know how much voice Eric Bieniemy is going to be able to have in the draft. Because, again, I'm showing my age, but I remember when he was a stud running back, I think Colorado. Is he going to be partial and say, no, running back, we can do this. That's the missing piece that we need. Or is he going to be kind of relegated to the sideline? That's a fascinating discussion.
Yeah.
Just going back to your thing, Brad, I was just going to say, because you mentioned about picking up a running back in free agency. Now, even adding in Jawan Taylor being cut, which he probably will be, they'd only have about 14 mil left to spend unless they cut a few more guys.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you think Kenneth Walker would come across for less than 15 mil a year, being this reigning Super Bowl MVP? Probably not. Even ETN coming off a nice year, again, probably not. I just wonder, unless they take a shot on like a guy that's like hasn't been that good, or like, it's got a bit of potential but hasn't produced, like maybe like I don't even know, like a Najee Harris, or I don't know, you might be able to get Rico Dowdle from the Panthers, maybe take a chance on him. It's like
Tyler Algier.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah. I just think because of the cap situation, it's just a weird spot that they're in.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like they need sort of a couple years just to sort of retool. Like this year, they can get Love. The rest of the draft, they can focus on the trenches and then the back end, and then they can do it sort of again next year. But if Mahomes is going to be there, I suppose, like, you've got the opportunity to be able to get a proper running back. Like, they haven't had competent running back play probably since Kareem Hunt's first time around with the Chiefs, when Mahomes was sort of very early days. So this is pre-COVID. Just to give him a bit of help, so he's just not Superman. And now that Travis Kelce might not be back, you probably need someone that you can rely on, maybe to pick up those third downs and come up in those big situations, which he might be able to do that.
Yeah, there are things that they can do. Like they've already restructured Mahomes because he originally was going to be a $78 million cap hit. And so they restructured him, and that I think they cleared up about 40 plus million in cap space with him. If you cut Taylor, their right tackle, who didn't play that well, that's 20 million. You cut Mike Dana, their edge, that's 9 million. And if you restructure Chris Jones, so they do have some flexibility. But your point's right, Nick. In terms of, are you willing to invest 15 million in a running back? I mean, given the running back situation and what they've been paid lately, I think they would come over for 15 million, but you never know. Yeah.
I reckon the whole extending Mahomes' window will look into it. I think the Chiefs are smart enough to look at staying young. Let's maybe take a backward step, 1 year, 2 years, just to extend that bit with Mahomes there. I think they're smart enough to look further into the future than maybe bringing ETN in that's going to help out this year. But like, how much longer has ETN got compared to, say, a Jeremiah Love that comes in, who's just out of college? And so that'd be my thing. They're smart enough to look into that.
Real quick, best case, worst cases. I know Isaac gave us one before. Nick, best case, worst case for the Chiefs?
This case, because you're not sort of sure on the landscape of the AFC. Best case would be, Mahomes does come back pretty early, and he's on track. They're not sort of rushing him, and then works out. Like they're able to go at it, make a run, even within a retooling year, they can make it work. Worst case is obviously, obviously if he came back too early and gets injured again. The other one would be, if they go through and, Mahomes doesn't come back, they could end up having a pretty bad year. Obviously, if they take Love or someone else and they don't sort of work out, to me, it's a weird thing. They don't really have a worst case scenario. They'll probably look at it and say, if we win 7 games next year, that's pretty bad. But it's like in sort of a couple of years where Mahomes this year's got a cap hit of 34 and then it jumps to 85 next year. To be able to restructure their cap and redo it and, build a proper squad. They've got that opportunity now. Otherwise, if everything works out, they, back in probably an AFC Championship game like they usually are.
Brad, best case, worst case?
Best case, Mahomes is healthy week 1. I think, best case, they get a running back, an effective running back in free agency. They draft a defensive tackle at number 9. McDuffie, they extend. Bieniemy comes back, restores discipline. They're immediate Super Bowl contenders. Worst case, Mahomes is not ready. Kelsey retires. They don't get a decent running back. McDuffie is probably traded because they're going to go get draft picks. Interior line doesn't work, and they're back here winning, 6-7 games.
Awesome. Let's move on to the Los Angeles Chargers, who picked up a brand new offensive genius in Mike McDaniel this offseason. Him, Justin Herbert, and John Harbaugh, probably an unlikely trio, but what a trio they're set to be at the Chargers. It'll be interesting to see whether McDaniels can unlock this mythical. It's a bad word. Bad words I'm coming with, but just take Justin Herbert to a level that he's kind of been at, but I guess the entire team to this level that they're supposed to be at. And I say that because year after year, Justin Herbert has been I think within the first year he was a stellar quarterback, and then he sort of plateaued out at like 3,500 yards every season. So he hasn't been a terrible quarterback, but we haven't seen that next level jump in the team around him and their play for the Chargers to be able to take advantage of that, and all too often the saying "Chargers are going to charger" rings true when they just shoot themselves in the foot either late in the game or late in the season. Isaac, what are your feelings on the Los Angeles Chargers moving into 2026?
I think they just need to get that O-line healthy. Justin Herbert showed last year that he can work with third string guys and still make the playoffs and still make plays. I think he's a phenomenal talent. Harbaugh's got that defense rocking. Just that offensive line every year after year, they're down to third string, fourth string guys even last year to try and protect Herbert, and it just took a toll on him by the end of the season, and fizzing out in the playoffs there. So health for me is the biggest one. Amarian Hampton got injured there at the back end of the year. He's another one that needs to stay healthy, and a good way of keeping him healthy is keeping that O-line healthy to protect him and open those gaps for him. So for me, for the Chargers, it all comes down to health. That's for me. That's plain and simple. They need to be healthy, stay healthy, and yeah, they've got a really good team, a playoff team there.
Yeah. I think they're on that cusp. They really are, and I'm hoping that McDaniel. That's right. Didn't I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. that he can do it for him, because they got to fix that interior offensive line, like we've said, and Linderbaum, who's arguably the number one free agent, at least for offensive linemen, he certainly is been rumored. Of course, he's rumored to go everywhere, but they have the cap space to make a good offer. They're top 3 in cap space for him. But Herbert took 54 sacks last year. They have to clean that up. And the Chargers had the worst pass block win rate in the NFL. So again, we're all banging the same drum here. They got to fix that interior offensive line. McDaniel's offense, they're heavy on motion. He does a lot of outside run, and that's kind of why he was brought in with Miami as a run guru. He does a lot of quick game emphasis. So, and Herbert's never played in that type of an offense, which is it's a Shanahan tree offense. So he's smart enough where I think he'll be able to adapt, no problem. So I think you're going to see a different style of Herbert. It might take some growing pains. He's the type of guy where I think he could flounder for a couple weeks and then it clicks for him. And then they got to figure out what they're going to do with the edge rushers, because right now, Mac and I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Owe, they're Odafe Owe. They're 2 edge rushers. There
we go. Got it.
Yeah. A Wimbleway.
Exactly. And they had 2 lead. I'm going to keep talking while you do that in the background, please. Those guys, they're all like free agent. They're top 3 edge rushers, so they gotta shore that up and figure out what they're gonna do. So that's key. But I think the real thing is they've made a massive jump by bringing in McDaniels, and I think that's going to be a huge win. And it's we talked earlier in the last episode about Harbaugh being a red ass, and I think McDaniels a real players coach. So I think that's going to be a brilliant hire, and he'll create some buffer between Harbaugh and the players. And so, because you always want good cop, bad cop. I mean, parenting 101. This is how it works. McDaniel's going to be the good cop, Harbaugh's going to be the bad cop, and everything's going to gel. All I got to say is bring in Tyreek Hill. He's going to have to sit for a while, but I would love to see him with Herbert as a quarterback.
Say they could benefit with another weapon as well. Like if they spend more so in the trenches, sort of in the offensive side of the ball, Obviously, we've spoken about it before, but
Mm,
you know,
mm.
if then they shore that up in free agency, you can maybe draft a weapon sort of higher up. Otherwise, if they can get someone sort of cheap, as well. But yeah, definitely as well. With their situation with their edge rushers, they may again add one in the draft. It really does depend, but they're in a good spot. Really, they've got a lot of cap space. They had built sort of the offensive line through the draft the sort of last few years. Just like everyone got injured. So I suppose like they've got their tackle sorted. Like they've got a great tackle combo in Alton,
Mm, mm.
and Rashawn Slater. So
They just
just
got to
yeah,
keep him
they could just
healthy.
spend a little bit on yeah, exactly. And obviously just fix up a bit of the inside. So it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of roll it with McDaniel now because Harbaugh in the NFL's only worked with Greg Roman. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how he does with sort of a different style of OC and how they sort of bounce off each other.
Mm.
Um, but they are in a good spot. It's just more so with the Chargers as it has been the last few years. How do they go in the playoffs?
What's
What
more?
is the mental block?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mm.
Do you think McDaniel's going to be able to unlock Herbert into MVP type, or are we going to be back here saying, "Huh, another mid-year"?
I don't think the problem is more so with him being an MVP caliber quarterback. I mean, someone had given him a first place vote this year.
Mm,
But
mm-hmm.
how much extra in the regular season he'd be viewed as like a great quarterback is one thing, but I think more so in most people's minds, like how can they get him to overcome whatever he's going through in the playoffs? Because it's clearly a problem. And until they get that fixed, like they could finish top in this division next season. They can win the AFC West, they can have that home playoff game. But is that going to be the difference between Herbert suddenly figuring it out? They don't really have a home ground advantage, so I don't think so.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So for me, it's all mental for him. He's got to be able to overcome that. He's been in a
Yeah,
few playoff games now. He's obviously been in big games in general, being in a division. Now with the Broncos being better than the Chiefs, so this has got to be something where it's just got to be like, you've got to get it right, man.
yeah, that's what I was saying at the start. I don't think it's a everyone always says it's Herbert, like, and they always the big taglines that always go around is unlocking him to be this MVP quality quarterback or unlocking him to be at this next level. But the guy has like I said, achieved over like 3,800 yards the majority of his career. There's only
Yeah.
1 year that he hadn't achieved over that number. He's got a 5,000 yard passing season and 38 touchdowns. Yeah, they're not bad numbers.
Oh,
For
they're
God's
great
sakes.
numbers. Yeah.
They're great numbers. The problem is his completion percentage is never over 65%. And that's that O-line problem. And that's that team around him problem. Nick, you talk about getting in an extra weapon. Interestingly, Daniel Jeremiah in his last mock had tight end Kenyon Sadiq mocked to the
Prospect.
Chargers. Great prospect by the looks of it. I had a bit of a look in him. I hadn't done a deep dive into tight ends yet, but had a look in. They're basically saying that he is going to be or could be a volume receiver target in the vein of Trey McBride. And you pair him with Lad McConkey, Quentin Johnson, Trey Harris, and Aronde Gadsden under Mike McDaniel's system. That's pretty cool. That'd be pretty fun. But it's interesting that Daniel Jeremiah went that way when I think everybody agrees that O-line needs not just health but depth. Like, it's just crazy. And as Brad said, they need edge rusher help and stuff, so they need D-line help as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there, but I think that comes back to that discussion we had in the episode earlier in the week where it was about the fact that edge rusher is pretty deep and all these other position groups are deep. And do you just take the best player available right there and then when you're sitting at pick 22 as the Chargers?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if they get there. Cool. Is everyone happy with the Chargers talk?
Yeah, and we didn't. The one thing we didn't mention at all was how Jesse Minter left. That defense was elite the second half of the season, and they bring in, not bring in, they promote Chris O'Leary as their new DC. So continuity wise, everything should remain the same. But that defense still needs to perform at an elite level.
Yeah, which is Brad, I think is the best idea. In terms of you lose two coordinators, you promote your DC. So you keep a continuity because they're really good. Bring in a fresh mind on offense and then go from there. They've taken the best course of action in those two, I think.
Yeah. Best case scenario, do you guys think they're contenders, legitimate AFC contenders?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think so because of what we've talked about already with the Raiders, and then with the way we've talked about with the Chiefs. AFC West wise, their hurdle is always going to be now the Broncos, who we're about to talk about. So, to me, yes, I think they're contenders for the division.
I think they're contenders for the Super Bowl if that O-line stays healthy.
Oh God, yes, they probably would have been this year.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely contenders for the division, but I don't know about Super Bowl yet, Isaiah. Let's start with one playoff win, but yeah, it's just honestly for this team, they've got the talent. Defense is awesome. Offense are putting it together. If they add a weapon or two, they've got the running backs. They'll get healthy on O-line. It's just a mental block. Can they get over that in those big games in January?
Yep. All right, let's move on to those Denver Broncos. So unlucky at the end of the season with an injury to Bo Nix coming into a championship game that they more than definitely could have won to get into their first Super Bowl for forever. I think since Peyton Manning. Look, I've been on the Broncos a lot, and I probably shouldn't say too much more because I'm still not a Sean Payton fan. But I do have to give him his flowers for the fact that he got them that far with a team that I don't think anyone thought was going to achieve that kind of level. They're a fairly young team. They're going to grow year on year from 25 to 26 for sure. The experience of that final series last year, end of that heartbreak, I think is going to do them a lot better. And I personally expect them to be a lot better this season. I want to hear what you boys have to say. Brad, Denver Broncos, their fortunes 2026.
Yeah, they're looking at the Super Bowl like it still owes them money. They basically they're one ankle away from making it. When you consider they lost to the Pats 10-7. Now that game was an anomaly because of the weather, but the fact that they almost made there with the backup quarterback says quite a bit about that team. So I think Peyton realizes there's some things that he's got to do to fix that and to make it a little bit more consistent. They were 11-2 in one-score games, which is so everything broke right for the Broncos. But the fact that they were in 12 one-score games, you don't want that. You want to be able to have a little bit of a more consistency. Their biggest needs, I think, is their run game. And they got to figure out the tight end situation as well. So on offense, and they just need one more playmaker, whether it's a wide receiver, tight end, running back. I don't know. They just need somebody that they can kind of be that go-to guy. And then on defense, you got to figure out with linebacker what you're going to do as well. So the J.K. Dobbins thing was good until he went down in week 10. And then after that, their running game just really suffered. So Dobbins is elite when he's healthy, but basically you can't count on him for anything. R.J. Harvey, he had flashes, and he was kind of a receiving threat, but in terms of that down to down, let's just feed him, he couldn't do it. So that's one of these teams that I think you got to look at the free agent market, because now they're outside of, there's no more Russ dead money. That's all gone now apparently. So the Russ dead money is over and done with. And then Ingram, your tight end, yeah, he's not going to be your long-term solution. So they did amazing, but there's still things that they could tweak.
Yeah, defensively they don't have to touch anything. They're drafting defensively on depth, really. Just guys that are backups and rotation guys. They've got a bit of cap room, so that might be a spot where, Kenneth Walker's being lured to. Also because they've got that cap space, they do need to draft those sort of weapon types, running back, receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe, they look at it and maybe they want to draft up and, trade up. And, how high can you get? You maybe take someone like, you really take a punt on at Carnell Tate from Ohio State, which is an amazing prospect. They really don't have an out-and-out number one. So you've really just got to help out Bo Nix. This is the time. They've got a little bit of cap room. Their defense is really good. So I suppose you just hammer, sort of the weapon spaces. 6 of their 8 top paid players are all on either side of the line, whether it's O-line or D-line. So like the trenches are sorted. That's what carried them this year. They got to team's quarterback. They stopped you from getting to Bo Nix. So you add in maybe Kenneth Walker on free agency, draft receiver or 2, maybe tight end, and they're really in a good spot. And then, they just go through with trying to defend the AFC West and trying to get back to where they were, in the AFC Championship game, hosting an AFC Championship game, but at least at that spot.
I think they regress this year, to be honest. The defense is elite, but like Brad mentioned, I think he said they went 11-2 in one-score games. If that's even 6-6, they miss the playoff.
Yeah.
Like they don't make it. Like if they split those games, I mean, mind you, I think if Bo Nix plays that game all the way through, they beat the Patriots and they're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always that one team that comes back to the pack, and it's always the team that has those 11-2 one-score season. It's always that one that comes back to the pack. So I think they regress in this one. Are they going to regress enough to miss the playoffs? I don't know. I just don't know. But to move on to the best case, worst case scenario. Best case scenario is they go 11-2 again, or even 10-3, and keep those one-score games tight. And the worst case is they lose those ones and they miss the playoffs, and they're back in top 15, top 20 pick in the draft.
Yeah, I think you're right. Best case scenario is that it all clicks together. They've got 9 picks in the draft, so I kind of agree with you about a regression type thing. I think that they don't get to that 14-win mark again this season. I think it is going to be lower, and I think it's going to be because they're going to bulk out their team with these 9 draft picks, and they're probably going to pick a bunch of young guys, which means that they will usually sort of fill those holes that Brad was talking about and come back to the pack a little bit more. But I would still see them even at their worst case as a 10.5, 11-win team. I think that they'll make the playoffs, but will they be that the number 1 seed for the AFC again? I don't think so.
Yeah,
Brad?
best case.
Or Nick,
Oh,
best
Brad?
case, yeah.
No, best case.
Go ahead.
Oh no, Brad, you go.
I was going to say, best case for me is, Davis Webb gives that offense a different dynamic. And so he does actually keep them at that 12, 13, 14 win thing. I think they land a running back, and the defense stays elite. So best case is you're winning that 12, 14 games. Worst case is like what Isaac said, the one score regression. And they finish 500 in one score games. The running back situation doesn't improve. They don't get a tight end. I disagree with Nick a little bit. I think they're inside linebackers. I know they've got Greenlaw and stuff, but I think health is an issue with staying those guys healthy. If they're all healthy, it's absolutely it's phenomenal. It's elite. But I would be concerned a little bit about that. And then I think they finish 8, 9, 10 wins.
Best case is obviously they get back to the same spot they were last year. They just put themselves back into a spot where, they're back to being in the Final Four, for example. The AFC, is in a sort of weird phase. Are the Chiefs going to have Mahomes? Do they look the same as what they were a few years ago? The Ravens have got a new coach. Is that going to work out as well? Is their defense actually going to show up this time? Cincinnati still have no defense. Is Joe Brady, going to be a good head coach? There's a lot of question marks out in the AFC. Obviously, you've got the Patriots as well. A lot of people think they'll pull back. So, again, there could be some opportunity. They get back, they draft those weapons when they bring in whoever on the offensive side of the ball. And you get that production out of Bo Nix, and he takes another step up. Worst case is really that even, let's say, for example, the AFC is still in that transition year. It's a bit weird. Teams aren't doing as well as they were, a few years ago. It was a bit like what it was this year. And, they don't win the division and, they sort of regress and Bo Nix hasn't been quite as good. He's not producing. So then they're like, do we need another quarterback? One thing I have noticed as well was that a lot of their better players on both sides of the line, as Brad did say, obviously with injury concern, they are older as well on both sides. So issue there could be obviously, a bit more wear and tear. The big guys up front, they're not, unfortunately, don't have the longest NFL life. So, there's that element to it as well. So that would be the worst case if obviously they can't capitalize on a transition year in the AFC.
Awesome. AFC West breakdown done and dusted. A lot of draft talk in there because obviously we're around the draft. Just a reminder to everybody, April 23rd is the draft. We're probably going to have to start doing a few draft shows to actually familiarise ourselves with some of these draft nominees ahead of the Draftapalooza episode where we will do an entire mock draft. So we'll have to start looking at that over the next month. Boys, time to find out what division we're doing a breakdown of next week. I've tried to help ourselves out, and I've doubled the 5 remaining divisions up. So we've got 10 options on the board now. Maybe so we don't end up with the calamity we almost happened last week, but we've eventually got to do the South. So let's see how we go. Are we ready?
Well, let's hear it. Let's
Spin
see
that
it.
wheel.
Wheel of
Fortune. Yeah.
Oh, we're going west.
Going west again.
We're
Beautiful.
going west once
love it.
again.
I love it.
NFC West next week. We will be diving into the division that we didn't really want to dive into. I mean Nick and Isaac's division. I've already been through the pain. Now we're going to talk about Rams and 49ers.
You sound so enthused.
I'm not so
Tune in
enthused
next week.
because it means we're leaving the Cowboys until the last one of our 4 teams to talk about.
Hey, we're
Anyway.
undefeated.
Is that the worst one? We've still got to talk about the NFC South.
Yeah, I don't know.
We forego that division entirely.
All right, NFC West it is next week, so tune in next weekend for that. And we might have a news episode dropping during the week as well. You never know. But the place to find out would be at G'day Gridiron on all the socials and on YouTube. Look out for us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can follow the show there and get notifications whenever we do drop an episode. Linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network for all of the links to everything to do with the Aussie Gridiron Network. And as I said, we are coming into draft time, so expect something coming up out of the Fantasy Boys as we get closer to that as well. So make sure you check out everybody, like, follow, subscribe everywhere. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you on the next one.
Peace.